The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. Bringing you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
Matt Eberflus has completely botched the Chicago Bears offensive play caller situation.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast.
The harsh reality of the Chicago Bears offensive problems right now is that firing Shane Waldron or switching play calling duties to someone else isn't going to solve all the problems on your offense. Yes, it would help, presumably. It feels like you can't do much worse from a play calling standpoint, but the Bears' problems on offense do go deeper than who's the one signaling the plays into Caleb Williams. Of course, if Shane Waldron's no longer calling plays, you're not going to get handoffs at the goal line to Doug Kramer, and you're not going to get speed option plays at the goal line that lose 13 yards, and you're not going to get 3rd and 2 passes into the backfield to DJ Moore that get blown up. You're not going to get, as many, hopefully not as many shotgun runs on 4th and inches, right? Like, there are specific areas that changing play callers can improve. But even if you take away all those play calls we just talked about, that fix the Bears offense? Are they scoring more than 3 points if you fix some of those play calls against the New England Patriots? Because firing your offensive coordinator is not going to fix 4 backup offensive linemen. Firing your offensive coordinator is not going to make those injured offensive linemen healthier. Is firing your offensive coordinator going to make Rome Odunze catch that ball he dropped against the Patriots? Is firing your offensive coordinator going to make Keenan Allen and DJ Moore run their routes a little harder and get open? Is firing Shane Waldron going to make Caleb Williams more decisive as a passer and hold on to the ball less long? I mean, maybe a new voice leading the offensive room can motivate guys differently and have them buy in a little bit more if they're not really buying into the message right now from Shane Waldron. But some of this stuff is a little bit deeper, right? Some of this stuff is a little bit more of a culture thing. It's a little bit more of they've collectively as a staff been hammering it to Caleb Williams to not make mistakes. Don't throw interceptions. Take care of the ball. And making him tentative as a thrower. I don't think changing the offensive coordinator is just going to instantly unlock all of that again out of Caleb Williams, because whoever your new offensive coordinator would be is going to be somebody already in the building. And one of those voices that's been saying a lot of the same things as Shane Waldron, right? We talk about how the coaching staff is in sync, right? That the quarterback's coach, the passing game coordinator, and the offensive coordinator have all been supposed to be telling Caleb Williams the same thing. They've all been supposed to be telling the wide receivers the same thing, the running backs the same thing, the offensive line the same thing. So if you take Shane Waldron out of the mix, okay, yeah, that's the head of the snake there. But Thomas Brown's been in those same meetings saying the same thing. Chris Morgan, the O-line coach, has been in those same meetings saying the same thing. I don't know that instantly changes a bunch about this offense. Again, I think it's still a good idea to change offensive coordinators and play callers because of the message it sends and the accountability side of things. But I don't want us to sit here and say, if we find out on Tuesday that, boom, Shane Waldron's fired, he's out of the building, whatever, that, okay, all of a sudden, the Bears offense this week is going to put up 25 points on the Packers. Nope, that's not how that's going to work. I mean, maybe they do, but it's not going to be because of the offensive coordinator change. I think there would be a bump. I think there would be more energy. I think there would be more, just the vibes would be better on offense, just because a change is sometimes can spur some of that stuff. But it's not going to solve all of the problems, no matter who you put in that spot. But it doesn't feel like they have a lot of different options as far as who they put in the spot. And we keep talking about passing game coordinator Thomas Brown, because Thomas Brown was the only Bears assistant coach on offense that has NFL experience as an offensive coordinator. You look at the rest of the board, it's a lot of Shane Waldron guys. Quarterbacks coach Kerry Joseph was the QB coach and previously assistant QB coach with Waldron in Seattle. Never been an OC before in his career. Chad Morton was the running backs coach in Seattle with Shane Waldron. Chris Beatty was a wide receivers coach with the Rams and the Chargers after that, but was with Shane Waldron under Sean McVay with the Rams. If you fire Shane Waldron and promote a guy who's been on his coaching staffs with him, how different is that really going to be? This is an offensive coaching staff full of Shane Waldron guys. Your only two outsiders are your tight ends coach, Jim Dre, who just retired from playing tight end 5 years ago. Your tight end coach is younger than Mercedes Lewis, for the record here. Mercedes Lewis was drafted, played his whole career, and is still in his career in the time that Jim Dre was drafted and retired, got into coaching, and got to be the Bears tight ends coach. He's not on the list of offensive coordinator candidates. So the only option for a quote-unquote, outsider sort of offensive coordinator would be your offensive line coach, Chris Morgan, who got the promotion to running game coordinator. But when you look at this Bears offense, which position do you think is getting coached the worst? Because to me, it feels like the offensive line, right? We haven't seen Coleman Shelton play well at all this season. We haven't seen Braxton Jones get better. We haven't seen Darnell Wright really get much better. We've seen Tevin Jenkins struggle. Like, where have we seen offensive linemen on this Bears team get better? For all the ways that Ryan Poles raved about the depth of this offensive line, like, we just haven't really seen offensive line progress there. So I don't have much faith in Chris Morgan. Honestly, if I'm firing Shane Waldron, I would fire Chris Morgan as well. If you're going to make the changes, if you're going to fire somebody anyway, fire Chris Morgan, promote your assistant offensive line coach, Jason Huftling, to full offensive line coach and get a different voice that way. But I'm not promoting Chris Morgan to offensive coordinator after how poor of a job with the offensive line I felt like he's done. So it really feels like your only choice is passing game coordinator Thomas Brown, which is not the worst choice in the world. But again, his only year as an NFL offensive coordinator was I think the Panthers last year were 30th in scoring and 32nd in yards. Like, it doesn't get much worse. And then of course, like, there was a bad Panthers team and Frank Reich was the head coach, and it's not all Thomas Brown's fault, but more so just not a lot of evidence to have a lot of faith in him. I mean, your wide receivers coach Chris Beatty was a co-offensive coordinator at the college level, I think at Illinois and Maryland, if I remember correctly, a co-offensive coordinator. It's not even a full offensive coordinator, not at the NFL level. So, like, that's something, but I don't think any of those guys are going to jump Thomas Brown at this point. So it just doesn't feel like there's a great solution here. And I don't feel like any of the options are going to drastically improve your offense. So I come back to the same thing. It's accountability. It's sending a message, but it's not really fixing the problem. The offense has to find other ways to get better. Like the evaluation process and the Matt Eberflus saying, hey, we're going to make changes. Those changes have to go beyond who's calling the plays and who the offensive coordinator is. Like, you can't just do that and say, all right, we're good to go, right? You guys happy now? The offense, we did the thing. Is the fan base happy? Like, no. The offense needs to play better too. And it sure is hard to imagine they will play better against the Green Bay Packers defense, the Minnesota Vikings defense, or the Detroit Lions defense than they did against the New England Patriots defense. I mean, weird things happen in division games, so never say never, but I don't like the odds of the offense figuring anything out of real progress in the next 3 weeks, and that's going to make it a long 3 weeks. So I hope you'll keep making Locked On Bears a part of your daily listening habit to help you get through what I think are going to be a pretty long 3 weeks. And oh wait, the 49ers are after that. I mean, God, it's gonna be a long little stretch here, but that's why we got to band together, buckle down, and keep checking in every single day to kind of check on each other here and be a part of this process. We're going to turn our attention to this Bears-Packers game here shortly. We're going to have Crossover Thursday with our friends from Locked On Packers. I know you all love Peter Bukowski, but he is a really good dude. Like, I talk to Peter a lot. He's a good guy. I know he represents a lot of what we don't like about Green Bay Packers fans, and I think he's good at playing that up on the podcast, and I'll let you in on a little bit of behind the scenes. Like, that's a little bit of a character. Like, it's not fully, I mean, he leans into it, right? Like, this is a little bit of a performance type medium here too, right? We lean into it a little bit and have a little fun with it, and Peter's jabs at the Bears are a lot more calculated and in jest than some sort of like real hatred or real dislike. So you give him a shot on Crossover Thursday here, even though the Bears are definitely going to be a punching bag for Packers fans.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could be on some Wednesday night basketball. How about that? The enigmatic Indiana Pacers head south to face the Orlando Magic. FanDuel actually has the Magic as 2.5-point underdogs in this one, despite having beaten the Pacers in Orlando once this season. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
The 49ers making moves. They're not waiting around for holdouts this time, getting it done.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I did not expect at all. And Deommodore Lenoir extended by the San Francisco 49ers, a 5-year contract extension, a long one, $92 million. The 49ers extending a free agent to be, getting it done early. Deommodore Lenoir, congrats to him. It's a huge deal for him. It's life-changing money. And guys, maybe the 49ers and John Lynch and ownership, maybe they're learning. And they said, you know what? We're not going to wait. We're not going to wait for holdouts. We're not going to wait for a player to not show up to mandatory mini camp. We are going to get a deal done, and we're not even going to wait until he's a free agent. A 5-year contract extension for Deommodore Lenoir, a little over $18 million per year. He's been one of the 49ers' best player. Matt Barrows called him the best player at training camp this year for the 49ers. He's been phenomenal in the secondary, a really good young player, a 5th-round pick that has been drafted and developed. And I know Croc off the air, you talked about it, but he was a guy that almost got or thought he might get cut. You remember he put some film out there in his first training camp, and he locked up an undrafted receiver. Was it Austin? Do you remember the receiver?
I think it was rookie mini camp. And yeah, he posted something at a time where you're not supposed to really be touching receivers.
Yes.
And which that was news to me because that wasn't explained to us when I wasn't doing OTAs and rookie minicamp and all that. Yeah. But it went viral. The clip went viral, and it was a great rep from him, but they didn't like it. And then, his rookie year, he came in and he did some good things, but then he got benched. And then fast forward to the following year, he was worried that he potentially may be let go. And he talked about how it was the practice against the Minnesota Vikings, the joint practices where he competed against Justin Jefferson. And he felt like without that practice week, he doesn't know if he'd still be a 49er.
The hyena came out that week. And I love the nickname. I love the way he plays outside in. It's so important to be able to play in the nickel in this day and age in the NFL. And he's really good at that. And he's good on the outside. Phenomenal player. Love the mindset. Love the way he plays. It's well-earned money. And I talked about this, and I thought there was no chance the Niners were going to get it done. I said, get it done now. Do you remember this, Croc? This was like before the season. It was like, why are we waiting on guys like Brandon Ayuk and Nick Bosa and all these contracts? And I named Deommodore Lenoir. I said, get Deommodore Lenoir done now. They got it done now. I can't believe it. It's already done, Wink. And Deommodore Lenoir going to be a Niner for the next 5 or so years, and who knows, maybe more.
Yeah, I mean, everybody who's watching the YouTube stream here has seen our nonstop smiles since this thing has started, because that's such great news. We heard about it right before we started recording this thing. The minute I saw it, I was like, oh, I got to check and make sure this is real, because this is really exciting, but I don't want to be faked out. The Niners never do this in the middle of the season. Like, what's going on? This is great. He's a fantastic player. He's exactly what the 49ers needed in that secondary the last few years. He's played exceptional football. Like you said, inside, outside. Doesn't matter where you put this guy. He's a great cornerbacker. He's a great football player, and he's a great 49er. So this is a great deal.
The money is interesting. I read that it made him the 11th highest paid cornerback in the league. And the thing is, with getting out ahead of these things, almost like the 49ers could have done with Brandon Ayuk, the longer you wait, other guys start signing, and it starts kind of bumping up the money that this guy potentially gets. So I think they made this deal at a very good timing for the organization and obviously for him. I mean, that's a lot of money regardless. But if you're the 49ers, you don't want things to start changing. And a guy that you potentially could have gotten for $18 million a year, and we haven't seen guarantees and what all that stuff looks like, but it's a lot of money for him. It could change come the offseason, and all of a sudden these other guys start signing, and he's Deommodore Lenoir and his agent are looking like, well, my guy's better than that. And he's more valuable to this team than this guy. And all of a sudden you have this power struggle with money, and you go down this rabbit hole of what they've gone through the last few years with some of these signings. So I think it was a great time for him. It is funny how I think when we saw the post on social media, almost everybody in unison talked about how the 49ers, they didn't wait until the offseason. They didn't wait until a holdout. Like they did this in the middle of the season. Good for them though.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's awesome. I love it all the way around. I love it for everybody. I love it for the 49ers. Love it for Deommodore Lenoir himself. And you mentioned the other corner. So 11th highest paid corner in the league, I think you said. And so here are the names. I'm looking at them right now. And the number is interesting because it puts him just below that top level of cornerback in the NFL. But there's a really sizable gap between the top guys and then the next group of guys. So the top 10 contracts in the NFL are Jalen Ramsey's getting average $24 million per year. Patrick Surtain, $24 million per year. Just got a deal done, I think, this offseason. Jair Alexander, AJ Terrell, Denzel Ward, Marlon Humphrey, Trevon Diggs, Marshawn Lattimore, Tyson Campbell, and L'Jarius Sneed, who also signed a free agent contract with the Titans this offseason, getting $19 million. Oh, and Jalen Johnson is the most recent to get his contract as well, right? The same number as Sneed, $19 million per year. And now right below that level is where Deommodore Lenoir is, but it drops from 19 mil per year to the next guy is Carlton Davis of the Lions at 14.8. So wow. Under $15 million per year. So there's a big shelf there. And that's where Deommodore Lenoir's contract comes in. And look, the initial numbers, 18.4, 18.2, whatever it is per year. We'll see if those are the real numbers because, the initial numbers are usually the one that's leaked from the agent's side. And so maybe it's a little less than that, but it's almost a weird, middle ground of not paying him like a cornerback one, but paying him more than the next tier of cornerbacks in the NFL and getting ahead of a lot of contracts as well. Cause the Sauces are up next and, Stingley or, whoever, there's a bunch of guys that are going to come and I'm sure get more money than Deommodore Lenoir gets. So by the time he's in year 3 of this, he might not be top 20. I don't know, as far as contracts go in the NFL, which is why I like doing it now. But it's an interesting deal because it doesn't put him in that CB1 territory with, the Jalen Ramseys of the world, but it puts him just below that and puts him above everybody else. And so we'll see how the market goes this offseason. But I love it. And there's one aspect of this deal, guys, that actually I find the most interesting, and it is the length of the contract. It's a 5-year contract. So starting next year, if that's year 1, unless they're erasing some contract this year, which I don't think. So 2025 through 2029 is when this contract would run. And right now, there are 0 players under contract in 2029. Deommodore Lenoir is the first one. Except now the Niners do have about $20 million in salary cap expenditures in 2029. All void years. Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Jake Brendel, Malik Collins. I don't know how Malik Collins' contract's voided all the way into 2029. Juwan Jennings. So a lot of the new contracts that have been done recently, a lot of star players there, and then some other, funny money, pushing money into the future with void years and maxing out those void years. All of those contracts are void contracts, and the 49ers have $20.3 million of total cap liabilities right now for 2029, but they're all void years. None of those guys are actually under contract for those seasons. Deommodore Lenoir, the first player that is now signed into the 2029 season for the San Francisco 49ers.
You got to feel that's going to change in the offseason, right? That it's going to be Brock Purdy who's joining them there in the long-term deal?
Off-season? What do you mean? Maybe that's the one that goes into September. We'll find out if it actually gets done in the off-season. That would be actually even more shocking if we saw hey, he's up next. Don't wait. Let's go. Brock Purdy. Do that one tomorrow.
Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Matt, this is one of those days. Andy Reid kind of gave us the lowdown, and now we have reports coming out that we're going to have a couple of players that have a possible window opening now for return that includes Isiah Pacheco and Charles Omenihu. Do you think that either of them is anywhere close? I like to think they probably need the full windows here for both of them. I'm even a little bit surprised about Omenihu. Who do you think is probably closer to an actual return on the field?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt, and Andy Reid kind of confirmed that on Monday that Pacheco is the one that's going to be closer. Amenahue, remember, I mean, when you're on NFI, you're just doing skills. I mean, you're not doing anything football activity, and certainly not any contact. So Charles Amenahue hasn't played football since January, so he's definitely going to need the longer window, maybe even the full 21 days. Wouldn't surprise me if it took the Chiefs until that point before they returned him to the active roster. Pacheco, it's been a much shorter outage. He has been doing some skills. He's been working out in front of the coaches and the trainers. So a shorter time. Is it more than a week? Could be. I mean, it would not surprise me at all if the Chiefs held him out of the Bills game, just because that's going to be a pretty punishing game, a lot to it, and he'll just have 3 days of practice under him, and we're going to see how intense those 3 days of practices are for this team. So I could see it taking 2 weeks. Take a little bit of that window for Pacheco. I think the Amenahue will be the longer part, but the important thing for the Chiefs is that you're going to get both of these players back in November, and that was always the time frame and the hope for both of them.
I'm a little surprised. I thought Amenahue would need a few more weeks. So opening the same time as Pacheco, while it's a great accoutrement for him to have progressed through his rehab to this point, I don't think there's any rush in getting Amenahue back on the field again for the precious days in January that you need him. I'm not sure that they have to do it. Do you sense that this is a changing of priority, that maybe they do want to get him back for a little bit pass rush earlier than maybe we expected in January?
I think Amenahue is right on time for them as far as their window. I mean, it was always one of those things that it seemed like Amenahue was hoping for October. The Chiefs were fine with December, and November-ish was always kind of the goal. So I think Amenahue is going to be right in there when they want him. And you kind of hit on it. What are they wanting from Amenahue during the regular season? Really just to get his legs under him, knock off some of the rust, slowly work into the rotation. He's not going to be asked to do the same things that he was last year, and certainly from a workload standpoint. He's going to be one of the guys in the rotation behind them. And, you're going to have Karlaftis and Dana as your backups. You're going to see probably Felix out there a lot in run situations, because I think he's actually shown that, being a running edge in early downs is a better place for him. Amenahue might be one of those guys that swings back and forth, and maybe just give him a few drives here and there. He's going to be a rotational piece. Jose Uche is probably going to be a third down guy for the most part. Not that you won't see him in some other places, but everybody's going to have their role, and Amenahue's going to be in that rotation. Because the Chiefs, they get it. I mean, when you're coming back from an ACL, any injury like that, and you've had that long of a layoff, any player will tell you the first year back is the hardest part, and you're not 100%. So they know they're not getting 100% of Charles Amenahue. So how do you manage that? Well, you use him in spurts. You use him in, a pitch count. You don't throw him out there as much as he played last year. So he's going to play less. They're hoping to get more out of him during that playing time. But they're going to ask him just to be a rotational piece and just be in there with Felix and Uche and see how it goes.
And I think that's a good progression. That makes sense. I think I'm a little bit more excited, and probably the team is excited about what I expect tomorrow, because you don't have to give a designation for a window with Juju Smith-Schuster. Sounds like he's very close to being on the practice field tomorrow. I get the sense that that's the way it's going. Do you as well, or is there something else we should be thinking about?
No, it seemed like they were circling this Bills game all along as the most likely return for him. And yeah, I think we'll get, confirmation for sure on Wednesday. If maybe the backup confirmation on Thursday. If Juju's out there in any form on Wednesday and is at least the same workload or an improved workload, he was limited on Wednesday and then a full go on Thursday, something of that nature, you're going to feel really good. Don't be worried if he's limited on Thursday, because that is the heavier work day. So it always could be that maybe their plan is just to bring him along slowly the first couple of days and then really ramp things up on Friday. Obviously they can manage his workload on Sunday as it goes along. But I'm not going to say 100%, but I'm going to say 90% that I'm expecting to see Juju out there for sure.
There's maybe no other team in this league, Matt, that's had as many injuries to deal with at the wide receiver position than Kansas City, but maybe next might be Buffalo. Right now, they obviously have shipped off Stephon Diggs since the last time the Chiefs saw him. Now, Keon Coleman, a guy who's been coming on for them as a rookie, big body receiver, a guy that I would have liked to have Jalen Watson available for, is unavailable, not going to play, already ruled out. Does that change the math for what Steve Spagnuolo needs to do?
I mean, yes and no. It certainly there's a few things that Buffalo's going to chase a challenge. Not only Keon Coleman, but Amari Cooper, their new addition, has been banged up, and outside maybe really his first game hasn't been as productive as they were hoping. And he's only played the one game other than that because of the injury. And Dalton Kincaid's been banged up, and when the Chiefs defense has had such difficulties all season with tight ends, that's absolutely something that would be beneficial to Buffalo. They need to have some of those guys back this week to help them out. But then they've also got some other weapons. I mean, James Cook has given the Chiefs a ton of problems over the last couple of years. He had a really good game in that playoff game last year. That's why one of the things that made it close was Buffalo's ability to run the football. They had 182 yards on the ground between Cook and Josh Allen. So there's things that Buffalo can still do even when they're banged up. And how the Chiefs handle Josh Allen, it's going to be a good question. They're coming off a game against Denver where their front four wasn't productive at all, didn't have any sacks. They didn't really get a lot of pressure on Bo Nix without the blitzes. Allen's different. He's going to hang in there in the pocket. He's going to take hits. He will take off running. It's a completely different matchup than what they've seen the last few weeks. Maybe even all season. And the only tougher quarterbacks they faced would have been Lamar Jackson. So this is a different look. There's different things that you have to do, but I don't know if if there's anything specifically that the Chiefs have to prepare for with Josh and the Bills offense that they don't know about. It's just that if anything, I think that if Buffalo can run the football like they did last year against the Chiefs, it's going to be a tough ball game. It's just the question is, can they do that? Because the Chiefs defense has been so good against the run this year.
Yeah, that is the big question. I'm glad you bring up Kincaid too. He was going to be my next question for you because I think he's the X factor. Like you said, they've been successful in using the tight ends. But if you flip it over, I think the Chiefs tight ends have an opportunity here. I don't think that the Bills defense is quite squared away as it has been in the past. I'll look at the safeties. I'll look at the linebackers. I personally want to see Hendershot in the offense a little bit more to help Noah Gray out in assisting Travis Kelce. But do you think that this game has to be a little bit more about attacking the safety group, or would you keep it at the second level and try to go after the linebackers as a primary focus?
Yeah, that's where this Buffalo defense is really retooled a lot. They've lost some guys up front, and they've obviously had some injuries up front as well. But Taylor Happ and DeMar Hamlin aren't like the guys that they've had in the past. And some of those safeties in the past for Buffalo have really given the Chiefs a challenge. So, yeah, I do think that you've got an opportunity there. And in Buffalo's corners, I'm not particularly scared of either. They play a lot of nickel. So in theory, you might face some lighter boxes. We'll see how the Buffalo kind of plays things. There should be some opportunities for the Chiefs run game to maybe make some headway in this one. The Chiefs have been committed to giving Kareem Hunt the football, but there's just been a decreased efficiency over the last few weeks. And that's something that needs to get better this week. You can't run for 2.5 yards, I think, against the Buffalo Bills and win. You need to be more effective than that. And if Juju's back and the Chiefs are able to, get another weapon on offense, then yeah, I think that they can attack, this Buffalo Bills team over the middle a little bit more. So let's see what happens here. But I think that this retooled Buffalo team got a good record. I'm just not sure they're as well built to take on the Chiefs as they have been in the past.
And that is a fair assessment. They are currently 18th in 336 yards per game, giving up an average of 5.4 a play, better than the Chiefs have done lately. But I think that is an opportunity. It is about what you think they're going to do and they're capable of doing when it comes to slowing down the Chiefs' offense. I think the blow for blow back and forth between the quarterbacks is worth the price of admission. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, I thought before the season started that this was the one game that the Chiefs were bound and determined to lose because the Buffalo Bills have been that team that gives the Chiefs headaches during the regular season. They play well at home. They've obviously have challenged the Chiefs in every contest that they've been in. This is always back and forth, but Bills have owned the regular season. And, I'm not necessarily a truther on this. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, Ryan, but I do think that if Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo and Matt Nagy have anything in their pocket that they think is going to work against Buffalo, they're going to save it for the playoffs because they don't want to give away anything for free. So that's why I think that Buffalo always has the advantage in the regular season, because I think that they are bound and determined to beat the Chiefs every year and prove that. And they're willing to throw everything out there that they have to in the regular season. And it's why I'm always going to take Buffalo in the regular season, and I'm always going to take the Chiefs in the postseason. Buffalo 24, Chiefs 23.